we went to Kauai last year, and one of the things that I looked up was hiking the Nepali coast, and someone said, that's a super difficult hike. It's a lot of incline. And in my head, 5-6 years ago, I would have opted out of it. Nope, we don't need to do it. But like this time I was like, oh, I'm up for the challenge. Let's go. And, it was like the whole family went. And it felt amazing to, go on this beach trip with your family where we definitely spent our time on the beach. We definitely, like, kids learned how to surf, all of those other things. But then going on the hike and being able to walk the beach or walk downtown and then come back, that was probably like the highlights of it, just because you get outside, you get to see nature, you kind of get that like bonding experience with your family.
Welcome to Women Mastering Midlife, where we dive deep into the rich complexities of womanhood in our middle years. I'm your host, Victoria Bird, pharmacist, certified women's health coach, and your guide on this transformative journey. Whether you're navigating perimenopause, thriving in menopause, or mastering midlife's many transitions, this is your weekly dose of expert guidance, compassionate support, and a judgment-free space to explore it all. So get cozy, hit that play button, and let's rewrite the narrative around this remarkable stage from being something to dread into a beautiful transition. So I'm excited to have on the podcast today Kia Gregory. She is a dynamic health and wellness coach specializing in guiding women in their 40s. She understands that our lives are busy, often balancing family, careers, and personal commitments, but she firmly believes we can still prioritize our health and well-being. Kia's journey began in 2017 when she faced her health challenges and transformed her lifestyle, losing 25 pounds and keeping it off. This personal success sparked her passion for helping other women achieve their health goals. As a certified health coach, Kia's approach is relatable, encouraging, and full of practical tips that fit seamlessly into our hectic schedules. From navigating perimenopause to fostering body positivity and self-acceptance, Kia's mission is crystal clear: to empower women to take control of their health without feeling overwhelmed. She's all about making wellness enjoyable, attainable, and sustainable. Whether it's finding pleasure in outdoor activities like hiking and golfing, or adopting simple yet effective habits, Kia's advice is both actionable and uplifting. I'm also excited to have you because you and I we've never met in person, but I feel like I know you through social media and our business mastermind groups that we've been in and coaching for the same company for a little while. And I've just really enjoyed watching how you approach your clients, how you approach your own health. And so I was excited to get on here and talk about how you manage health and wellness.
Thank you so much. It's an honor that you thought of me and that you invited me to have this conversation with you. And yeah, I'm absolutely excited to talk and connect with people. Like every single time you listen to a podcast, something that someone says will resonate with you. And so I just love having that opportunity to make those connections. So yeah.
Yeah. So you said in 2017 that you were facing some health challenges and you've lost 25 pounds and you've kept it off. And that's a struggle for a lot of people. I know there are many women out there who can lose the weight in a 4-week program, a 6-week program, but then the actual keeping it off in a manageable way that makes them happy and not hungry monsters or, just people you don't want to be around because they're so miserably wrapped up in food. So tell me a little bit about how your journey, your personal journey, and how you began.
Yeah. So 2017 was almost like a wake up call, mainly because I went to go see my doctor and it was just like a regular routine check. And they said, hey, we think that you might be like pre-diabetic, like you're gaining weight, you're showing the signs that you are going to be pre-diabetic. There's a few people on your dad's side of the family that have diabetes. We want you to check into this program. Like through our healthcare provider, they had a few different options for us to just kind of like have someone hold me accountable. So that way I could start making healthy choices and basically lose weight. So that way I wouldn't be considered pre-diabetic. The other thing that I ran into as well was I had high blood pressure, which was a surprise because I think in 2017, like I was in my, mid to late 30s. Yeah. And so I was just like, oh no, high blood pressure. And they wanted me to take meds. And that was one of the things that I'm just like, I'm way too young to be on blood pressure meds. And I'm also way too young to be worried about diabetes. I know that there's things that I can do to help that. And it was just, I knew for a fact I wasn't eating healthy. I wasn't moving my body. I was being pretty darn lazy. I had a toddler at the time, and health definitely was not a priority for me. And then just hearing my doctors say what they said, and, this could lead to other health issues. I said, no, that's it. I'm definitely taking this more seriously and I'm going to do things so that way I can lose some weight. So it started out like definitely as I need to do this for my health. And then it turned into kind of like a vanity thing because as you start to lose weight, you're just like, oh my gosh, I look amazing. I feel amazing. People are complimenting me. And then after that, just to keep the weight off. And I did things in a sustainable way. I should have mentioned that in the beginning. Do you want me to share like what it was that I found that helped me?
You can.
Yeah. So the things that I did was it was late 2017 and of course 2018 everybody's trying to do something and I found what was it called again when you eat the whole foods, Whole30. And so wait a second, so I did Whole30 for 30 days and it was interesting because my mom is very much into eating like she actually is vegetarian but she eats a lot of plant-based foods and then we'll just do like a lot of whole foods period. And so for me to do that for 30 days wasn't a big deal. And at the end, I was like, oh, I can keep doing this. And if I wanted to, I can have a piece of cheese. Like, it's not a big deal. And then in the meantime, I also found out just through, I think it was Google or something. I was like, oh, if you intermittent fast, like you can, change your metabolism a little bit. And so I would do that not regularly, but just definitely periodically. I liked to work out. Like all of a sudden I found out like, oh, I actually like working out, but I liked group fitness more. So I checked into a few different group fitness classes. And then that just kind of became my everyday because it was a part of my, like, this is what I'm doing to make me feel good. Cause I also noticed like I was just a different person when I had more energy mentally. I felt like I was like ready to take on the world. Like my husband was excited because he was like, look at all these wonderful things that you're doing. And they weren't all necessarily related to like housework and cooking and things like that. But it was just like, oh, we can go on hikes. We can do these things. And so it was, there was just like so many different things that kind of started to fall into place when I decided to, I guess, take it more seriously, take my health more seriously.
Yeah. And I think what women don't understand is that it's not necessary. You don't have to want to lose weight or start eating better or exercising just to be smaller. Like there's other things that come with the weight loss. There's, more energy, like you said, and getting to do more activities. And then it does become part of your everyday and you want it more. And so the first part feels a lot harder. That it's always simple. It's never easy, but it does feel like once you get over that initial hump, it can be a lot easier to just keep it going. It's sustainable as part of your lifestyle. So when you started to see all these results, and you started to notice that this was making lifestyle changes that were sustainable for you, is that how you became a health coach? And like, how did that all come about?
Yeah. So basically after I started to have success, there was a lot of people like within my friend group and then people that I worked with that just, started recognizing and noticing like, oh, you're a mom like me. You also have kids. You're also busy. Like, what did you do? And a lot of people were really surprised at how boring it was because they just assumed like I was doing something like, oh, you're doing something or what pills are you taking? Are you doing keto? Like all of the things that I've kind of like blocked from my mind because they're definitely not sustainable and not healthy. And so when I told them like, oh, it's simple. I did this for about 30 days and then I kind of made that a consistent way to eat. And then I work out and I work out in the morning because I know if I try and do it in the evening, it's not going to get done because I have kids who do, competitive dance and volleyball, etc. And so when I told them it was just like basically I made a lifestyle change and I made a mindset change. A lot of people were just kind of like, oh, that's kind of boring. Cause they just wanted like the thing like, oh, what's the new thing that you're doing? Tell me how.
Yeah.
And so after I found that there was, everything that I was doing technically was scientifically based, these are ways that you can lose weight, but also increase your energy. You can, add years to your life, etc. I found that I could, be certified to help other people. And so that's the main reason why, is just because I was already helping people and I wanted to make sure that I could also offer them expert advice. And so me having that certification was an opportunity to do that and then help other people along the way, not just people that I know, but also, other people that find me and they think, oh, you're relatable. You look like me. Your journey sounds like mine, or at least the beginning part of your journey sounds like mine. So let's work together. So yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah. I remember you posted a reel that you said like you're 5'9" and this is your stature. And we were just talking before we started recording that in social media, you have no idea like how tall someone is or, how, what their typical, you don't want to lay your measurements out there, but knowing like, oh, I've always been taller than most people, or I'm shorter. I'm 5'1". I wish I could be like 5'3", but it makes a difference when you find somebody that you're like, hey, they kind of look like me. they're doing things to change their body. And so when you started talking to your clients, you started building like a client list, what are some things that you were seeing in them and maybe even in yourself when it came to making health changes? And let's talk about, like, as we're moving into this stage of our lives, you're seeing like perimenopause symptoms are starting to creep in and women are having some frustrations around that. So are there things that you have seen in your clients?
So obviously, when women reach out to me, it's usually because they're frustrated that they can't find something that can help them feel like the way that they used to. And so that's like definitely like the underlying theme of most clients that I connect with initially. They're just unhappy. And some of them are not necessarily unhappy with their appearance, but they're definitely just unhappy with obviously the things that their bodies are going through because they're probably in their late 30s, early 40s and hitting that perimenopause and not even understanding that that's what's going on, because a lot of doctors won't address it. Like, you can go see your doctor, especially if you go to, we have a lot of different healthcare systems out here where it's very traditional and they're very by the book and no, you're healthy, you're fine. And they don't want to say, maybe this is something that you should look into. And so just being able to have that conversation with women when I'm like, oh yeah, so what have you noticed? Oh, I haven't been sleeping well. I've noticed that I've had low energy. I've noticed that, so like I had two clients very specifically who were losing their hair a lot more. And it was something that I remembered this very specifically with my mom. But when she was going through menopause, she was losing her hair regularly too. And it was because she wasn't eating enough protein. Like, for her, she was just like, she, one, didn't feel like eating. And then two, I don't ever really think that protein was something that she looked at back then. But now, as the health coach, I've talked to my clients about like, yeah, let's talk about how much food you're actually eating, because if you have low energy, it's probably because you're not getting enough protein, you're not getting enough carbs, all of those things. And so they have to make that mindset shift as well, because for the most part, women who contact me have always been told they need to eat less and they need to make sure that they're running on the treadmill and they need to make sure that they're sweating a lot at the gym in order to see some positive change. And what we found out now as women that are in, the stage that we are, that's not the case. That's not the thing that's going to help them like see the changes that they want. So, yeah.
Yeah. I've noticed that the shock of you need to eat more, it doesn't usually go well the first few conversations with people. Getting women to stop like taking a few bites of something, or they would have, crackers with a side of like a little cup of hummus and that's their lunch. It's like, no, you need to eat more food and you need to eat the right food. And I think that when people think of health coaches, sometimes I think they get this connotation that we're going to put them on a diet, and that's not necessarily what we're there for. So how can we shift the focus from weight loss to overall well-being? And what are the benefits to this approach that you find?
I think shifting it from weight loss and more to how do you feel in the morning is like a conversation that I have regularly with my clients. Like, they love to check in. They love to say, this is what I ate. These are my macros, etc. I moved my body. And the one question that I've been asking a lot more of them is, how did you sleep? And they'll usually, oh, yeah, I guess I slept all right. How did you feel this morning? Are you having like that afternoon slump after you've gone through a day? And so me, I guess, actively asking them those questions has also led them to start that as the conversation, instead of it being like, oh, I went to the gym and this is how much I ate. It's always like, oh, I slept better, or I went for a walk in the afternoon instead of coming home and, trying to fight off a nap or whatever. And so just by making those little, I guess, question check-ins a part of our everyday, we've definitely been able to shift the conversation from let's not talk about how much weight we're losing to let's talk about how we're feeling overall. And the other conversation that's important to have as well is, just because you're losing weight, or just because the scale's not moving, I should say, it doesn't mean that your body isn't like, there's not other things that are going on, right? We both know that muscle weighs more than fat. And so our encouragement is to make sure that women start, doing some sort of strength training program as they can work it into their, like, whatever they're able to do. That's the thing that we want them, encourage them to do. And they're not going to see a shift on the scale as much as they want. But then, how do your clothes fit is a better thing to say than what did the scale say, right? And so I think for a lot of women, it's just like these small little ways to like tweak the check-in questions, or just tweak the questions that they're asking themselves when they wake up and they look in the mirror, is probably like something that we all should start doing regularly instead of it being like, oh, I stepped on the scale and I noticed that I went down a couple of pounds. Because guess what? In a
Yeah.
couple of days, you're probably going to go up a couple of pounds because our bodies fluctuate, 5 to 7 pounds a week or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, with water weight, with, just even our cycles. I know that I look completely different from a side view given any time of month.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that I'm any less healthy. It's just I'm holding water or I'm about to have my period. There's a lot of different things that women don't put into play.
Hmm.
And also that is true. Like stepping on the scale versus how do your pants feel or how do your clothes feel when you put them on is two totally different things. Muscle's more dense. It's going to fit on your body differently. It's going to fit in your skin differently. And so I think we need to shift that. And I think for our generation, especially, we're kind of seeing that narrative shift, but we still have that brainwashing from when we were younger of,
Yes.
be small, eat less, move more. And we're starving ourselves and we're running, 5 miles a day or an hour on the tread. And it's getting harder and harder to see that change that you want by doing the old things that we used to.
Yeah.
So I know that you and I we used to go to the same kind of gym where we would spend an hour and we would do like half cardio, half weights.
Hmm.
And then I saw, I had to step back for health reasons and an injury. And then I saw that you started spending more and more time in a gym, and I saw you going to a gym with a weight room, and I was watching your shifting of your narrative. And how has that felt for you as a woman? Like, how has that changed your approach to health and also your health coaching?
I think in the beginning, I had a lot of clients because I was in the boutique gym for an hour doing half cardio, half strength training. A lot of my clients followed me and they said, oh, I see that my health coach has these results. So let me do the exact same thing she does. But at the same time, I was coaching them to pick up weights more, but I wasn't doing it as much. So then when I finally shifted and said, doing this much cardio every week isn't serving me, because I think at that time I was probably going 5 to 6 times a week. Besides the fact that my body, like I noticed that I was just not recovering as quickly anymore. My body was just, I was constantly re-injuring the same shoulder. I just noticed like, okay, let me take it easy and let me try something different. And so I got into the gym and I started lifting weights, and I saw way different results than I think I would have if I would have continued my journey with doing, cardio and weights or like HIIT training or whatever. And so once I started to make those shifts, like I noticed that my clients were like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. And it's like a different sort of like, you're chasing a different sort of like feeling, because before it was like you were chasing that like, oh, it feels so good, like the afterburn, like you get home and
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you can attack the world or the day or whatever. And then when I was lifting weights, it was different because I was noticing that I was taking my time a little bit more. I was understanding that I didn't have to spend as much time in the gym lifting weights. It's just like picking up a heavier weight and being slower or intentional with my movement, like making more of like the mind body connection. And then just noticing like, oh, I can actually feel the muscle groups that I'm working out. And so when I made that shift, I also had that conversation with a lot of my clients, and a lot of them did make that shift, but some of them still like are in that mindset of like, no matter what I say, they're still in that mindset of I still have to go to the gym. I still have to do cardio. And I'm like, yeah, we can still do cardio. Like no one's saying cardio is bad, but we're also saying that as a woman that wants to see different results, especially when you hit the age that we hit, when we are perimenopausal, like you're going to have to do things that didn't work for you 5 or 6 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And we need rest days.
Yes, rest days are so important. I wasn't taking them, honestly. I was like, oh, I'll rest on Sundays. And then when I started to take rest days, like all of a sudden, just I think productivity in the gym went up. And then I was just able to see gains differently. And that's another thing too. A lot of women are scared to pick up weights because they think they're going to get huge. And one of the things that I talk to my clients about, and that I've talked about on my social media networks or channels as well, is I am a tall person. I'm 5'9.5". And a lot of people will comment or compliment and say, you look amazing. And then when I tell them, like, I dropped I'm in my 190s, and like no one is chasing 190 pounds when you're 5'9", like all of it's relative. But for me, it's like, I'm 5'9". I know I'm 190. I know that I'm a muscular, like I have an athletic build. And for me, like my clothes fit great and I feel good about that. And it has nothing to do with the scale. It just has everything to do with like, I know that I'm getting the protein that I need. I know that I'm getting my steps for the most part. I know that, I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting weights. And so like those are the important things that I'm using as my markers for I'm doing well. It's never, I think for the past at least 3 years, it's never been about chasing a number on the scale because that number would change. And when I was probably I guess after I started my journey, when I weighed the least amount of weight, I was also taking a lot of time off because I was injuring myself a lot and I was hungry. And so now I don't have that. Like now I'm like, no, I feel fed. I feel great. I can go and then I can, come home and I can still have like a whole day of doing things instead of saying, oh no, I gotta ice something. So
yeah. And you're also a teacher. Like you're not just a fitness. I keep forgetting to say this to people. Like you're a middle school teacher, which like you should have a statue raised in your honor. I have a middle schooler and a freshman in high school. And I will say, I've spent time with middle schoolers. I have one. Bless you for for choosing to go every day into that classroom.
Yeah.
But you're also working. So it's not like health and fitness is your life. You're not one of those health coaches that, you are there 24/7 and you're in the gym with you're always focused on health coaching. You have a full-time job, but you still have time to focus on your own health.
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about this, but one of the things that I noticed this year was I did reach that point where I was just like, I think I was just tired. Like I would always do a really good job of posting what I was eating, what I was making for food, how easy it is to food prep, mainly because I wanted to make sure that my clients were being successful. And a lot of other people are just like curious, like, what is it that you're eating every day? And so having that be a part of like what I was sharing was super easy. And then the same thing with, my check-ins in and out of the gym, like, oh, I showed up, etc. And then I think it was right after the holidays this year. So like January hit. And it was like literal burnout central. Like I had days when I was just like, and today I am eating a can of tuna for lunch. Like, before it'd be like, I'd bring a full on like spread. It was a huge grocery bag filled with everything I was going to eat for the day. And then I just got to the point where I was just tired from doing a lot of things. And so, yeah, I just really kind of fell off of that whole thing as far as like meal prep goes and like being consistent with my macros. And that part started to affect me, but I was also like in this weird state where I'm like, I know exactly what to do, but right now I'm not in the headspace to do that, to get back on track. And so I'm just going to take a little bit of a break and, we need breaks.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of times with social media and what health and fitness experts and influencers are posting online, they're not sharing burnout. And I think that there is a health and wellness burnout when you're constantly working on, what are you eating? What is your movement? You're checking the boxes with the water consumption. If you're doing intermittent fasting, the fasting timer, tracking macros, weighing food, whatever it is that you're doing, it's okay to say, like, there's a lot of stuff going on in life that's busy and I'm tired and I just need to take a break. But that doesn't mean you should quit it. You shouldn't quit on your health. Like you came back.
Yes. And I think that's the other thing that a lot of people, especially when they do something that's not sustainable, they will quit, they will gain weight, and then they'll say, I don't even know how to get started again. But when you do something that's I consider it easy now, and it's just like every day. Like, we know that we have to wake up in the morning and we have to brush our teeth. We know that we have to wake up in the morning and we have to, like, for the most part, most people get dressed, right? And so it just becomes like an everyday habit. And I think when I started to implement all of those things into my life, as far as eating healthy and how I was going to eat, it was just a habit. So for me to like fall out of that habit too also felt so weird. So I wasn't like doing a huge show or anything like, oh, here's what I'm taking, here's what I'm eating, here's what I put in my protein shake. But I was still doing those things. I probably just wasn't sharing it as much. And then when I was going to the gym before too, it was always my goal to try and lift like 5 pounds heavier every week. And I kind of stopped doing that too. I was like, I'm good with just lifting what I was lifting the week before. And so just kind of like taking that mental break where I'm like, I'm not going to push myself, but I'm still going to show up for myself because I know that I need to.
So in the messaging that we put out there for clients and ourselves, what are some ways that we can promote body positivity and self-acceptance while still striving for our health goals?
I think, again, everything has to do with mindset shift. A lot of clients will come to me and they'll say they want to look like someone specifically. I want to have a body like whomever. And I always try and like have them reframe it. Like, what would your best, healthiest self look like? And even I was the same way when I first probably started my journey. Like, I had a very specific goal of like losing a specific amount of weight. And I wanted to look very much like a celebrity that I loved. And then it just became like, I just need to look like myself. Like, I want to look like me. And so having that conversation with my clients where I'm just like, hey, what can we do so that way you can feel help? Like, what would it look like for you to not stand in back of your kids for a picture? You can stand proudly to the side of them. What would it look like for you to be able to take the hike and walk at an incline? And so it's just a lot of conversations about, let's not worry about looking like the influencer that you follow, because guess what? All of the things that they're sharing probably don't represent what they do on a regular basis to have the body that they have. And then also there's this whole thing with genetics. Like, people think just because they're working out as much as they are and eating the exact same things as these people, like they're going to have the same body. But like, genetically, none of us are ever going to have the same body as the person that we want, that we think has the best looking body. And looking at vitals too is another thing. So like, just changing the conversation to not wanting to be super skinny, but instead like, what's going to happen next year when you go see your gynecologist? And they're like, oh my gosh, I noticed that the scale went down. Good job. I noticed that your blood pressure, your blood pressure reading was this. And so trying to make sure that it's just more about them and how they feel, as opposed to like, oh, I want to look like so-and-so, or I want to make sure I can. And for some people, it very much is about, I'm going to Hawaii. I want to look my best at the beach. Yes, we can absolutely do that. But it also is going to be about you feeling your best, because you know that you were consistent with your effort before you got there, instead of it just being like you keeping your fingers crossed that everything's going to turn out okay.
Yeah. And isn't it great when you go on vacation and you've been taking care of yourself that you have the energy and the stamina to do things?
Yeah, that's the best part.
Yeah, I remember before I really took care of my nutrition that we go to someplace warm. And instead of wanting to go on a hike or wanting to walk the beach with my kids, I just wanted to lay by the pool. Mm-hmm. I wanted to lay by the pool and order drinks and read magazines. And we do have time for that. I'm not saying that that's not off the table, but that was the only thing I felt like I had the energy to do, because I was so exhausted from my life that by the time I had a break, I couldn't physically do anything. And I wasn't healthy enough to do any kind of sporting activity whatsoever. And so it's definitely been a fun shift. The last time we went to Maui over midwinter break, and I was walking with my daughter up and down the beach every day, and we would hit, a couple miles, and it's like, that's fun. And if you can incorporate like, oh, I can take a walk with somebody and I can have a conversation with somebody and we can connect, then you're getting your steps in, but you're still having fun with it. It doesn't necessarily always need to feel like work to move your body.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the other thing too. We're taking family vacations now, and instead of it being a dreaded, like, oh no, we need to, drive to this place or drive to that place. A lot of the times, like, we went to Kauai last year, and one of the things that I looked up was hiking the Nepali coast, and someone said, oh, that's really like, that's a super difficult hike. It's a lot of incline. And in my head, 5-6 years ago, I would have opted out of it. Nope, we don't need to do it. But like this time I was like, oh, I'm up for the challenge. Let's go. And, it was like the whole family went, and it felt amazing to, go on this beach trip with your family where we definitely spent our time on the beach. We definitely, kids learned how to surf, all of those other things. But then going on the hike and being able to walk the beach or walk downtown and then come back, that was probably like the highlights of it, just because you get outside, you get to see nature. You kind of get that like bonding experience with your family. That was one of the things that I think I posted about once, was that I'm usually not an avid hiker, but in the springtime, I'll get outside at least a couple of times a month to hike. And my family never wanted to go with me, but they know now, like, their love language for me is like, mom wants to go on a hike, so we should go. And so it's just like, in 2017, that wasn't a thing. Like, I think I took a picture and I posted it, and it was me at the end of a hike. And I just looked like it was literally probably 2 miles more of a trail than it was a hike. And I looked like I had been through it and come back again. And I was just like, what in the world? I remember this day perfectly. It was not that, it was not that serious. And then now, like, we took a picture at the end of our hike and we were all sweaty and just like smiling and laughing because we had this experience together where we got to bond. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what women, our kids are getting older. We're running out of time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't you rather focus on making memories of activities you could do together than like, oh, mom was too tired, she needed a nap, or mom couldn't go on the hike, so she stayed back and waited for us, or we didn't do it all together because we couldn't do it. If mom couldn't do it, we couldn't do it. And I don't know, I just feel like when that mindset shifts of, I always want to be that active parent. I want to be involved. I want my kids to have a grandma that's active if they have kids. So I just think we all need to start changing our mindset around like, I have to be skinny. I have to be size 2. I have to, and just really think about those things. And I think setting an example for women and putting that out there, like this was a simple hike. And I bet if you went back and you did that trail, you'd probably be like, this is like a walk with my dog on the Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's fun to see how you move on, like how your goals progress through time too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like a 6-week program and you're done. You've been doing this for 7 years now.
And that's the one thing I think that a lot of my clients who will work with me, they'll leave and then they'll come back, is that they forget, like, yes, you can get a lot of the things that I can teach you in 6 weeks, because typically that's what that's how the program runs. We do like 6 weeks of like, basics, fundamental information. And then it's your job to then implement those things into your everyday life. And then you think you don't need the support at the end of that 6 weeks. You're like, oh, I got this. But then you forget, like, you still need those check-ins. You still need to remember, like, okay, I do need to make sure I'm having this amount of protein, drinking this amount of water, making sure that I'm, eating healthy carbs as opposed to the stuff from the gas station pickup on our road trip or whatever. And so making sure that women like know, like, hey, this is how I can support you. And we're going to do our best to make sure that you have skills and tools in place at the end of this 6 weeks. But you're not going to see like tremendous, like change as far as your body composition goes. You're going to see some things, but the real change is like, it all takes place mentally. And I think sometimes when women sign up for that, they are expecting to see like dramatic dress size changes or whatever in 6 weeks. And that's not sustainable. And we know that's not sustainable. We've seen it plenty of times with other people who try trend diets, and you see them and they do look amazing. And then as, summer hits and they kind of like fall off and they get a little bit lax with what they're doing, they gain the weight and then they don't know what to do next. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you and I both actually have even had the same nutrition coach. Like you have a coach yourself,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important for women to understand, is that even though we know everything we know what to do.
Yeah.
Even beyond, like above our clients, we know, like when I lay in bed at night and I think about my day, I know exactly what I did and what I didn't do and what I shouldn't have done. So having a health coach of your own is important, to have somebody to check in with, someone to hold you accountable. Cause like I said, I know I'm going to have to report back to so-and-so what my movement's been, if I'm, and it's not a punishment to go to your health coach and say, I had like 3 days that were great and 2 days that were just junk, and the next days I was trying to get back to it. It's okay with them. No one's perfect. No one's expecting 100% adherence to anything. And I think that that's also something that we feel like failures. Like if we can't do it 100%, we don't want to do it at all. And I think that that's one of the ways that your approach is so much different than all of the noise that's out there on the space of health and wellness coaches. So aside from, obviously your approach of you don't have to be perfect, what are some other ways that you feel like, you're not just another coach with another program? This is how you're different for women who are out there trying to relate to someone.
Yeah, I'm a real person. And I think that's the thing that a lot of women who decide to work with me appreciate. Like, I'm a mom. I have a husband and he is picky about what he likes to eat. I'm like you said, a middle school teacher, and every year is different because every year the students are different. And I think that that's the thing that people appreciate, like I have time to talk to my clients about what they need to do and they check in with me, but they also know like their journey in the beginning is probably what my journey was like. And so I, stumbled and I got back up again, and they are still in that process of where they're trying to figure those things out as well. So my approach is definitely different, just because when I see my people struggling, I'm not going to say, okay, well, you need to make sure that you're doing these 4 things before you check in. Like, we're just going to pick one thing to focus on, because I've been there, like we talked about with burnout. And the one thing that I could focus on for all of February was making sure that I had enough protein. I wasn't concerned about carbs. I was concerned about protein, right? Because I like to count my macros. And so I've had to coach a couple of my clients where I'm just like, hey, the only thing I want you to focus on right now is making sure that you track your protein. You don't have to track anything else, but as long as I make sure that you're getting your 100 grams, your 100 plus grams, I'm okay with that. Some women found it really hard to just get in steps. Like that 10,000 steps is kind of like the magic number, but we know like 8,000 steps is better than 4,000 steps. 8,000 steps is better, or, like 5,000 steps is better than sitting on the couch. And so just trying to meet my clients where they are and then coach them to like, what can we do right now? So that way you can see some sort of positive growth, and then we can add to it from there. And so it's definitely not tough love approach. And I think a lot of women, because we're women, like they know that someone can see through them when they're making BS excuses for something. And so they show up and they're just like, yeah, I know, I shouldn't have done. I know there was the meat thing. And then I went to the car, like they'll be real and they'll say, and I know that I need to, rein it back in. And on the Monday or the following day, I'm not asking them like, okay, now I need you to fast for 24 hours. I'm just saying, okay, cool. Make sure that you have your water, and let's make sure that we need to flush out all the sodium, like we're trying to find things that they can do that are simple, instead of us saying, well, now we have to start over from scratch again. Because that's not what we're supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be giving you tools. So that way, if you decide to go and have fun for the weekend, you're not going to wake up and feel awful like, oh no, I ruined it all. Like, you didn't ruin anything. You just were a human and you decided that you were going to have fun with your family on the weekend. And now we know that it's Monday, and we also can't continue that lifestyle because that's just going to put you back to square one, which you don't want. So yeah, just making sure that they know that I'm human and we treat each other with respect and we're honest with each other. That's usually how, I've seen the most success with my clients.
Yeah, I think I like to use the analogy of, you find a program and you don't realize it when you pick it. You just pick it based on the results. And then you get into it and you're trying to fit square pegs into round holes.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole program is a bunch of square pegs and you're a bunch of round holes, and you can't fit anything into your life. And that's not going to work. And so it sounds like with you, I mean, there might be a couple of things that, you think are round pegs, but they're a little oval. So you're like, okay, well, let's just figure out what we can do to either, change them to round them off a little bit, or let's focus on what actually does fit in your life. And so I think that's a much more effective approach that women need to understand. And when you look at all those packages out there with all those, they're so shiny, and they're so well marketed.
Yes.
And they've got great catchy phrases to get you to remember them. And, there's things in there that might be good, but it might just not work for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not finding someone that can meet you where you are, then it's harder to make progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I think it's the other thing too, is that some people will sign up to work with someone because they have the results that they want in the end. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things with me. It's like, I'm my own success story. And I remember one time when I was at my gym, my group fitness gym, someone said, oh, your body is my goals. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. But really, like, I feel like myself that I have a lot of work that I need to do every day. So thank you so much for the compliment. But also, like, what you're doing every day by also showing up is amazing. And so I think for women to find that success and then also want to work with someone like me to, have that success too, they just have to have I guess we've been talking a lot about mindset, but just like go into it with the mindset, like, my success is going to be in, being 1% better than I was yesterday. Right. And just showing up every day, knowing that, okay, this is where I started for today, and tomorrow I'm going to do a little bit better. And it's kind of we did this in the classroom all year long as a teacher. Beginning of the year, we do our writing assessment, and I always save it for them and I give it to them at the end of the year. So we have the same writing prompt. I give it to them. And then at the end of the year, same writing prompt again. And then I have them do it. And then I have them compare their beginning of the year writing prompt with their end of the year writing prompt. And they're always like so amazed, like, that's the way I spelled that, and, like, they're just always like, what? I thought that was, and so it's always fun to have them edit their work. And they're always just so impressed, like, wow, okay, that's cool. I guess I did learn a lot. And so the same thing with my approach to how I coach my clients. Like, if we look at your day 1 and we compare it to month 12, I know that sounds like a long time for some people, but your day 1 is not going to look anything like your day 365 or whatever. And along the way, you didn't feel like you were doing much, but when you compare from beginning to where you are now, you're just like, wow, I've come a long way and I've learned some really great things. Like, I had a client who actually checked in with me, and she was so excited because she said she went to a potluck at work, and it's, all of the things that she would love to eat, but she knew that she needed to eat salad first. And then she was the one who brought the chicken that she wanted. So that way she could have her protein. And then after that, she was like, and now I feel like I can have those earthquake bars or whatever. I'm like, you absolutely did what we've been talking about since you joined me. Like, you made the right choice, and you also drank water instead of having soda. Like, I'm proud of you for that. And so, like, it's like those little wins like that when they check in, that I'm just like, yeah, okay, you're doing a good job. You're doing great. You're going to be okay.
That made me think of a story in the car this morning. My daughter changed schools in April after spring break. Very, very abnormal. You usually don't switch that late in the year, but it's a new trimester for the school she's in. And so math was a little bit wonky, like trying to figure out where she met up with the math class that she's in. And some of the stuff was new and intimidating. But then today she was sitting in the car and they're learning about slope. And she was like, we did this every day forever in my math class with my teacher. And he would always make us watch these ridiculous videos. And I remember this stupid song, excuse my stupid word, but this stupid song. And I hated it, but I heard it in my head when we were talking about slope. And I feel like I know something more than the whole math class right now. And I said, isn't that funny how the things that you don't think you're learning from, you're actually learning from, and maybe his crazy ways were actually working on you. Yeah. And she does, she's going to be 13 on Monday. So she certainly doesn't like hearing that he might've been right, but it's true. And you apply that with coaching, you think about it, there's things that we say that they're like, yeah, whatever. And then 6 months later, they're like, I remember that time that you were telling us this thing that we should try, or like a way to do something. And I thought that was ridiculous. So I ignored you. And now I tried it and it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So maybe being a teacher and a health coach is actually,
they kind of go hand in hand. I just have to, remember I'm working with my adults are like big kids really. And then my little kids will never be considered big adults. So not really.
And if you don't want to follow Kia for her health coaching advice, you have to follow her at the very least for listening to her talk about stories with her kids, because the stories from middle school children, even if you don't have one, make you chuckle.
Yes, my students have always been interesting. Every year there's always, I think that's probably the one thing I look forward to about teaching is like the stories of the characters, because every student is a character. And once I find like their quirks or whatever, I'm just like, wow, you're an interesting kid. So yeah, those stories, I will always, every single time I see a kid, I'll be like, remember that time? And we'll laugh about that. So yeah.
And I bet you do that with your health coaching clients too.
Yes, I do. We do have a lot of good times. I actually am overdue for a call check-in with them. So we'll be doing that, and I'll be listening to all of the fun things that they got into for April and May, because we haven't checked in a while.
Yeah, and then you'll remember all their stories.
Yes, I will.
It's like a vault up there.
Yeah.
So how can somebody find you if they're interested in working with you or connecting with you or learning more? How are some ways they can find you?
The best way to reach out would just be finding me on Instagram. I am at Kia Gregory, so KIA and then last name Gregory. I do not have a separate page. So when you look at my page, you will see my fitness stuff as well as some of my family stuff. And in my stories, you'll hear a lot about, we do like carpool karaoke with my youngest daughter when we're driving to school. There's usually a song on and she'll usually be singing. So you'll get a lot of reel from me, and you probably get some good little food ideas as well. But yeah, usually my Instagram is the best place to get in touch with me. And then if you wanted to send me an email, you can do that. I have a Gmail account. It is mrs.kiagregory@gmail.com.
Okay. And I'll put it in the show notes as well. Perfect. So if anybody's interested in finding you and they're driving or walking and they don't have a pen handy, they'll all be in the show notes as well. So it's been so fun talking to you.
Thank you. It's been fun talking to you too.
And I think outside of this, once we hit, stop on the record, we also, I would like to chat with you more regularly. I miss talking to you.
Yeah, so I know. We both got so busy. So yeah, we need to especially because now we're on summer vacation, we have a little bit more time. We can put each other into a rotation regularly.
Oh yeah, because you're teacher on summer break.
Yes, and I've just been golfing it up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, we will chat again soon. And thank you so much again for coming on and talking to me.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll be back next week for another episode of Women Mastering Midlife. Until then, find us on Instagram at Women Mastering Midlife and join my free Facebook community, Women Mastering Midlife, to continue our discussions. If you have any questions that you'd like answered on an Ask Me Anything episode, send your emails to hello@missvictoriabird.com.